And welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with your host, Daniel.
And Daniel.
Daniel, good afternoon.
How's it going?
I'm tired of being threatened, so I've transitioned to good afternoon now. I'm being better.
That's better.
It's closer. It's not afternoon, it's actually evening. But
I'll give you afternoon because technically it is afternoon.
yeah, it is legitimately afternoon. Well, I mean, depending on how far you go afternoon, it could be morning.
No.
So you could say...
We live in a time frame that's 12 to 12, like 12-hour clocks. So you got your noons, you got your midnight.
Who set this law?
I did.
Oh, I see. Okay. Mr. High and Mighty over here. Well, good morning to you, sir. All right. Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in. This has been... No. So today, we are back with another Top 8 debate. Our first Top 8 debate since Gamma Trade Show. So we've had a bit of a break there while we're covering all the new interesting stuff.
And, recovering.
And recovering from the new interesting stuff.
Oh, but also, I want to make mention about this. This is a special episode.
Why is that?
This is the 50th Top 8 debate.
That's right. We have somehow found 50 ways to argue about games, and we're still going, people.
And we've only ascended 2.
That's right. That's right. And we will continue that process, because that means that there has been at least 50 games that have ranked top on our list. Well, 49, 50 soon.
Yep. Today will be the 50th game.
So speaking of today being the 50th game, what are we even debating this time?
Today we're doing something we've already done. We did variable setup, and this time we're doing a variable player powers.
Now, let's talk about why this is broken on Board Game Geek, because I strongly disagree with the way that it clarified it.
The definition for variable player power is each player has special actions that only they can perform or that modify standard actions.
Right. So let's explain this real quick. So when I looked on Board Game Geek just now, there was more than 14,000 games that count under that category. And that's because it is so loose that they include games that you start off exactly the same, but later can get a special ability through like a card or anything.
Yeah.
So basically every game.
In fact, let's just say how it is. Our number 8 game is 5 Tribes. The variable player power is depending on which gin you actually end up getting.
You know, like a really simple card game that has variable player power? Something Wild by Funko. That's because if you win a set of Rummy, you might take a victory card. That'll give you a special power. It's a technicality, but it counts. I don't know. I mean, I get... Like, variable powers, yes. But variable player powers makes me feel like you start the game differently than other players.
Yeah. But that's variable setup.
Yeah. It's part of variable setup, but no, it's part of the mechanisms because you could do something that nobody else can.
No, I don't disagree.
I don't like the idea that you can buy something that then becomes only yours.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with that in a game. Don't get me wrong. I like the games that are on this list. I just don't like that's considered variable player power.
I think there's one game you don't like on this list.
Probably.
And it's not like that you don't like it. It's not your cup of tea.
Yeah. Yeah. I know which one you're talking about, and yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it.
But that one does meet the criteria we're talking about.
That meets the criteria better than most of the games that are on the list, honestly.
No, actually...
yes.
There's only 2 on the list that I have that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
The rest of them actually pretty much fit.
So let's talk about examples of this.
Okay.
Pandemic is a good example of it.
Yeah, but we can't argue about Pandemic.
Right. But Pandemic, you start with a different character ability.
Yeah.
That is yours throughout the game.
In fact, the top 2 games on this list of Board Game Geek are the top 2 games that are ascended.
Right.
So they can't be in this argument.
Exactly. And definitely Gloomhaven falls in this category.
Oh, yeah. Because
your character is very
different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The one I just unlocked recently, I really want to itch to play it because it looks cool.
Well, come on over. You can play Jaws the Lion and throw that guy in there. Help me through my tutorials. That should be fine.
No, we'll probably end up playing it here soon. It's just been busy lately.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, no, those match the criteria. Now, like I said, out of the 8 games, 2 of them are a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put the elephant in the room. There was one game I actually outright vetoed.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, though. I'm gonna agree with you, like even vetoing it just on concept alone. So it's Android Netrunner. Now, both sides are technically different players, and you do play differently. Like it's better than like just getting a separate ability at the beginning of the game. Your deck is very different. Like the corp feels like a corporation. The way that they handle everything, you could either be backstabby, you could either be like very protective of your stuff. You could have like a lot of manipulation, a lot of cool stuff, and there is legitimate variability in that. And then same with the runner player. Because the runner, their characters are either super fast, they're very good at getting through the walls, like the ice blocks. I forget what they're called, ice, but they're basically firewalls essentially. There's a lot of ways you can manipulate it, or you can, like, as a runner, manipulate your opponents. But that's like saying Magic the Gathering is technically
variable player power.
No, you just build a different deck. And you have a separate ability, and I give it credit because the two players are different sides, but it's an asymmetric game, and that's absolutely on purpose.
And that's completely different than variable player power. Asymmetric. I mean, asymmetric games can fall into this category if you think about it.
Root.
Root, I think actually Root was on this list. But to me, that's just because they have different win conditions too. That's what changes it as well.
Exactly. I completely agree. They're not playing the same game technically.
Because every game on this list, everybody has the same win condition. They just play differently.
Right. Exactly. So speaking of our games, so this was a pretty easy list to come up with. 8 that we both played. Which is good because I suggested one that like totally did not have enough, and
5 games.
I don't even think I would have had enough, but I was pretty sure you would.
I was looking at it and I was going through it, and I'm like, I don't think he's played this or this or this. I know I haven't played any of these.
It was a publisher, but that's beside the point.
We liked the publisher. I don't think we just played enough games.
Right, exactly. So it is what it is. But so you found a nice like broad category that I thought we had done already, but turns out we hadn't.
No, we did variable setup.
But this will be a fun one to debate. But I really, really honed in on why I'm slightly perturbed about that in my honorable mentions. And so
I can actually show you here, if you ever want to go look through this. This is every single topic.
Which you are not allowed to see, by the way. Like this is the holy grail of our podcast information.
Well, this is just the top 8 debate. That's the holy grail.
That's right. Both of them. Both folders combined.
This one has the ideas. This is what we've done.
Right. It's intense.
But
like the fire at the circus.
Don't you have like a scary circus game now?
Yes, I do. I picked up Dreadful Circus. And I'm really looking forward to playing it, actually. It looks really good. I read the rules. It's like Sheriff of Nottingham, but a lot more demented.
Well, Sheriff of Nottingham wasn't demented, so...
Well, exactly, not at all. But here's the thing. In Sheriff of Nottingham, right, you don't really... Like, when you offer things to the other player, whoever the sheriff is, you just have to tell him what you're bringing in, but it still becomes yours unless he confiscates it and you have bootleg, right? Where this game, you're actually bidding on the card that is being offered by the main player. And it's awesome because... you hand them a closed box with tokens in it, or tokens or whatever, and they score in different ways. And the main player who's auctioning it off, they have to open up one box at a time and decide right then and there if they're going to take what's in that box. If they deny it, it goes right back to the player, and they can't go back to change their mind. So it flips it. But I believe it's a Bruno Faiduti game.
Okay.
And it looks really cool, and I love the art on it.
Honestly, I can't think of how many Faiduti games I've actually liked.
Well, maybe that should be a top 8 debate one of these days. I'm sure we've played enough.
Maybe. I kind of avoid Faiduti, I think. But we can look.
Oh, we can. Maybe Cathala. Unless we've done that before.
I don't know. I don't think we've done it Cathala.
See, now we're just brainstorming ideas when we should be creating good content. Yeah.
I know we've done a board game breakdown to Cathala, but...
Yeah. Well, I don't think we've done a debate yet.
I'm going through this quickly.
He's looking through the tome.
Nope.
All right. Well, then there we go. We can do another top 8 debate soon.
Yeah. All right. In then 2 weeks.
Beside that, let's talk about our games that we have on here on honorable mentions. Let's talk about why we have them.
Do we want to start with the people?
Yeah, let's talk with the people.
Sorry, it's been a while since we've done a top 8 debate. We're a little out of sync here.
So we're going to talk about the games that were added in. We posted a poll in the Board Game Revolution group, in Facebook. So if you want to ever vote on future episodes, sign up for that group.
Because you're the tiebreaker.
They're awesome. And you guys count as the tiebreaker. But we also let people add in their own things and
comment what they're going to do, but we didn't get any comments, but we did have some ads. Yeah. And I agree with the first one. You want to tell them what it is?
Yeah, it's Lost Ruins of Arnak with the Leaders expansion.
And this probably didn't hit my honorable mentions because you literally have to get an expansion for this to fall into the category.
Correct.
But I would not play Lost Ruins of Arnak without the leader.
I agree. It's absolutely a great job making variable player power legitimately. And you all feel very different.
Yeah.
And you manipulate things in different ways.
Exactly.
And it's a great, almost an essential expansion now.
I would say it's essential, but to me... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I didn't put it on my honorable mentions either.
I agree with it to the extent that I think I highly recommend it for people, but it's not an essential for me.
Right.
I say you should get it and play with it and only play with it. But Lost Ruins of Arnak was a great game to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to get it down the line, if you just want to play the base game, more power for you. It's a really good game. The only thing I've ever called an essential expansion is Valhalla for Champions of Midgard, because that distinctly made that game much better. And that is, I will not play without it. But I also recommend anybody who wants to try Champions of Midgard, get the Valhalla expansion. It just makes it... I don't care about the other expansions, but that one you need.
Right.
This one, it's a great expansion. I say it's a must-buy for most people, but you don't have to if you don't need to.
That's fair. You know, my original stance on Lost Ruins of Arnak is that I did like it, but I wasn't about to race out and buy it. Like,
yeah, you've had a copy.
I enjoyed my plays of it, but I was never itching to play. And then we played that expansion, and now I'm still not itching to play. I definitely enjoyed myself more than any other play of that game.
Yeah, so I played it twice, or 3 times. We played it once regularly, then we played it with the Leaders expansion, and both you and me, who were okay with it. In fact, I had Dune Imperium higher than Lost Ruins of Arnak. I think Dune Imperium might be still slightly higher, just because I like the battle system in it more than like the exploration in Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Okay.
But the Leaders really put it on there, because I think it was like just outside my top 100. I think this puts it in the top 20.
Wow.
That expansion by itself just... And I played it I completely taught it to a new group who played it and just put the Leaders expansion in, didn't mess with all the new stuff, just the the Leaders. And they adored it. They really, really loved it, so...
Yep, that's all it takes, really. Yeah, I like it when... I mean, it's like almost too obvious to include variable player setup in expansions, unless the game is kind of like honed in for that.
Yeah, no, I get it. And a lot of people tend to do that too. But I just think it's a great expansion. In fact, if that's the only expansion they drop for Lost Ruins of Arnak, I'd be fine with it.
That's fair. That's very fair. All right. Let's talk about the next one that was added in.
And this is Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, and we'll talk about that later.
Okay. All right. Well, this is awkward. And the last one that was added in. That was by Scott and Kevin, who added Lost Ruins. Scott added in TI4. And Jamie added in Tsukiyumi Full Moon Down. Have not played it.
Have not played it. Yep. I own it. You can see it right above my head over here.
Yep. It's been up there a while.
And I've unboxed it finally.
Oh, okay.
It's completely unboxed and ready to play. It's a chore to read. It's one of the more harder games out there. I do want to get it learned. I have the play mat in the closet over here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to getting that to the table. And I would agree, it does have variable player powers, because as I was going through all of them, those player characters that you can do play completely different. And they all have their own personal goals, so that's where it falls with me, where it's the variable player power or asymmetric, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, that's what the people said, and they didn't add any comment. This is just me stating where to find it.
Cool. Perfect. So now let's talk about our honorable mentions.
Sounds good to me.
As always, I have our Coin of Doom ready to flip. Let's see who begins. Daniel.
Hey, look, it's me. And when I mentioned we're going to talk about Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, that would be now.
Oh, okay.
That is my first honorable mention here.
So why'd we even delay it at this point?
Exactly. I really enjoy this game. I have the expansion right over here somewhere. I do have to get it to the table again. The only issue with this game is that it is a bit of a chore. It's like you can only play it once a year, if that. Yeah, because it's going to be the only thing you play. We played a 3-player game of it for the first time play for everybody, and it took us 6 hours.
Ooh.
And that's a 3-player game I heard people do in 3-4 hours because there's not as much going on.
Right.
And then I've heard people play like a 6-player game of it and get it done in 3 hours, but that's all they play. Right. They don't really play any of the other games like I have on my shelf over here.
Right. And the fact that, like, if they're, like, speed running it, it still takes 3 hours.
Exactly. At a full contingent, too.
Yeah.
I do like the fact I like it's a 4X game. It does have that variable player power that we talk about because my race plays differently than the other people's races. So when we played it, one person was all about the economics, about the trades and stuff like that. And I played a turtle race where we were just more worried about building up our armies and then expanding. And it just is our ability to, build ourselves up. And our other buddy, he was all about, expanding as fast as possible, getting his armies out there because that's what his character does. And so we all played completely different. But it all has the same end goal trigger that when we're talking about asymmetric to this one. We have to get to a certain amount of points. And it plays really well. I love the components quality on this one. Now, there's some games where you'll have like the different shaped ships, and for all the different players, this one has all the same, just different colors. That's fine by me. I dig this game. So that is Twilight Imperium 4th edition.
All right. Very cool. My honorable mention, my first one that I want to talk about, is a game where it's kind of a cheat in that you are playing the same game. Ultimately, you're trying to bring your opponent from 50 life down to 0.
Do you play Yu-Gi-Oh over here or something?
Nope. But it's not a collectible game by any sense. In fact, it's more like Yahtzee than it is Magic. And that
is Yahtzee?
Dice Throne, basically, yeah. Dice Throne, I like Dice Throne a lot. I just played it again a couple weeks ago. Always enjoy it. It's basically Magic Gathering meets Yahtzee. But, it's nice and casual. You know how to roll 3 times. You know what you're aiming for. Make dice combinations. But then on top of that, you're adding on character powers. Everybody plays completely differently. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that was really matter. It's still the same end game goal that I aim for. Bring your opponent to 0 life first. That's all you gotta do. But the gunslinger has bullets that you're pulling. You have people or characters that have, different familiars with them that summon things. I had the character, I forgot what the character's name was, but it basically had a wolf companion. Oh no, a tiger companion. It was a tiger companion. And you could have the tiger companion jump in front of attacks and basically get knocked out and then start healing over other rounds. And so you can't heal yourself, but you can definitely heal your tiger, which never gets knocked out. Okay. So it's kind of like a variable shield. It's super cool. All of them work really well. I haven't found a character that I thought was more or less balanced than others, but really I've had fun with every character I've played.
Yeah, I really need to play this again. I really enjoyed the first play of it that I've done. I liked it so much when they put the Marvel license on it, I backed it right away. It was an instant back for me.
And the only reason I didn't is because I don't care about Marvel, but I'm glad you do.
So, speaking of backing, let's get off topic. I'm going to say this on our podcast.
Uh-oh.
Damn it, Dom.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up backing the Sleeping Gods.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep. Our mutual friend likes to do that to us, where he shows us, the most expensive Kickstarters that we're really excited about.
Yeah.
I would have been happy not knowing about half of the ones he tells us about.
Exactly.
Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But man, does it hurt.
It does. Sometimes. And I knew it was on there, and then he showed that you can get everything. I'm like,
right.
I really want to play Sleeping Gods, and and then I know one of my game groups, they love Ryan Lockett games because we play Above and Below. We played Near and Far, or we're gonna play Near and Far as one of our next one. So when I saw what Sleeping Gods is, I was like, okay, because we're almost done with Harry Potter, and we're almost done with the Initiative, so we need to start something new.
Yeah, that makes sense. I still need to play more Initiative. Absolutely. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Our number 2, you'll start us off.
And let's keep it up with Fantasy Flight. And this one was on the list, and I kind of agree with it. This is Star Wars Rebellion.
Oh, okay. I was close.
Which one did you say?
Android Network. No, I'm just
No. I chose to veto that one. Yep. I don't remember it. But Star Wars Rebellion, this you feel completely different. But this is along more lines of the asymmetric side of things. I did want to mention that as well, because you do have different goals. The Empire wants to destroy the Rebel Alliance, but the Rebel Alliance wants to get the plans and, you know, thwart the Empire. But it's one of the best thematic games that I've played. Mm-hmm. And it's the largest 2-player game I own. I know it says 2 to 4. No, it's the largest.
Don't you lie to me like that, Fantasy Flight. Yeah. How dare you?
No, because I don't like the fact that the 4-player game you have to split up. Like, so one character just runs the land armies and another character runs the space armies. It's like, why?
It's like how technically The Alchemist was like a 5-player game.
Yeah,
one player's like just has all the puzzles and not playing a game.
Yeah, no, it's a 2-player game. It's so big that the entire player board is 2 boards.
Oh, wow.
Like large size board game boards. So like Ticket to Ride size. And 2 of them, side to side.
Wow.
It is massive. Get all these pieces out there. The Empire looks like the Empire stuff. You got like the Star Destroyers, the Death Stars, and stuff like that out there. And then you have the for the X-Wings and the Y-Wings for the Rebellion. And it gives you that feeling that you're playing like the original trilogy. I do have also the expansion that I want to get to the table where you're playing Rogue One. It has the Rogue One stuff in it, so I want to play that because I really enjoyed the tension of that movie and seeing how they brought it into the board game category. So
which would be really exciting.
Yeah, Star Wars Rebellion.
Very cool. I'm gonna let you try and guess my next one. Okay, it's not too difficult because each of the 2 players, it's only a 2-player game, each of the 2 players gets during setup their own special ability, variable player power, and that's the only thing that sets them different other than playing this abstract strategy game.
Onitama?
No, not quite, because you share those in Onitama. This is another one. It's incredibly pretty. It's based off of a city in Europe.
Santorini.
That's right. That's really the only difference between how you're playing it is a very strong...
And that's with the advanced play. It's not just the basic play.
Yeah, exactly. The basic play is very simple. You know, you just move some pieces around. And it's a fine game. It works really well. But what sets that game apart is the variability. That and the 1-player ability. You just get dealt one, you deal with it. That's your ability.
And
I love it.
And it's one of the Greek gods, right? That's your ability. You become one of the Greek gods.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of them... For example, you can't jump off of like a building like super tall, right?
Yeah.
Some of them you can, right? Yeah. One of them might be able to skip a building or jump over something. One of them might be able to push the other players. Like, it's just very simple concept. Yeah. Actually, now that I realize it, this is my second Roxley game on my honorable mentions.
Yeah, it is.
Because I didn't realize that before. But yeah, I mean,
I went back to back Fantasy Flight. You went back to back Roxley.
That's right. Yeah. And I just love it. It's such a cool game.
No.
And the variable player power is the only reason that game is as good as it is.
Yeah, I mean, the basic game is fine. It's fine. I honestly recommend to you, if you want to learn Santorini, do the basic game before you add the variable player powers.
But yeah, you're not going to have fun until you're playing with the variable player powers.
That's the whole point. I have fun playing the basic game because it's just you're trying to make sure you get to the third. It's fine, but once the variable player powers gets in there, it turns it to a whole nother level.
Right, exactly, and that's where I love it. So Santorini, that's my number 2.
Okay, my question is. What is Santorini, New York's variable player power?
I haven't seen it. I'm assuming it's mafioso and pizza rats and subway performers and
the naked cowboy.
Yeah, and then people jumping from skyscrapers.
Yeah, okay. That just got dark.
And moguls.
I
won't say oil barons, but
it kind of makes sense with Santorini, like the Greek gods.
Moguls, yeah.
New York.
Well, I mean, the name doesn't make sense either.
Santorini, New York.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our last one.
And our last one, I'll be starting us off. So this last one, believe it or not, is not by Roxley, but I will let you also try and guess this. First off, it started off as a game from the 80s, where it definitely had variable player powers. Got rethemed with a license, and I feel like this IP is what sets it above and beyond its original counterpart, and why the variable player powers are so necessary for this game.
So it's something in the 80s, and now as an IP.
Yes. It didn't have an IP before.
Not even sure.
Game of Thrones, the Iron Throne.
Oh, Cosmic
Used to be
Encounters.
Cosmic Encounter, yeah. And so, first off, that it's a game about shrewd negotiation, but every player is very different. That's the whole gist of the game.
Cosmic Encounter is the 70s.
I'm pretty sure 80s, but we'll check later. But either way,
well, while
one
you're
of us
talking,
is right.
I'm going to go look about it.
All right, well that's fine, because Cosmic Encounter was a game also very heavily based on variable player power. That's how you win or lose, is by these shenanigans that you do. And the Game of Thrones universe needed something like this. It is all about negotiation. All right, I said correctly, 97 or 77. Almost got you there. But Game of Thrones needed something where it's like you're shrewd negotiating. You could just straight up battle each other. You have all these.
Oh, they have the board game.
Character. Yeah, but that's diplomacy with extra rules. It's all that is. You know, and it's fine. I say that lovingly because I do like the game.
It is a really good game. It's just.
But yeah, nobody will ever play it ever again. But the Iron Throne, this is the most true, absolutely the most true iteration of the Game of Thrones license on a game, in my opinion, because you are straight up like, hey, why don't you work with me? Let's spread our influence into the castle. It's like, no, you don't want to? Okay, well, I'm going to stab you in the face because I can. Like, yeah. I love it. It's so good.
I get it. It's not even my favorite Game of Thrones game.
Yeah, the only problem that I had with it, and this is honestly, the base game came with only 5 of the 7 houses, and you had to buy the expansion to get the other 2.
That's stupid.
But it is Fantasy Flight, so
yeah, they do that all the time. Yeah.
But no, this game is fantastic where it was. I'm surprised not enough people are talking about it. Some people are
that's
like,
because
it's
it's a re-theme of Cosmic Encounters, and Cosmic Encounters got too much love for
right, and it has 1.5 million variable player powers, where really they just kind of refined them to the best.
Yeah, and speaking of which, we're talking about like how Fantasy Flight does it. They did it with Cosmic Encounters too, where because it was originally Avalon Hill, I want to say.
I know Mayfair did one.
Mayfair was another one, I think. But they had like several expansions or just alien powers. And Fantasy Flight like released like the first 5, and then just released 2 or 3 per expansion to catch up. And it's like, I get why you're doing it because you like money, but come on,
come on, like put 50 in the box. And make it the ultimate edition, right? But that was my number 1 honorable mention: Game of Thrones, The Iron Throne, and with the expansion.
Mm-hmm. And my number 1 honorable mention is a game I just recently played. I saw it on the list, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put it on here.
Sushi Go Party. No. Sorry, I'll stop.
The variable player power is at the start of the game. You have an empire, a different empire for each player. I think it's what it's called. And this one is It's a Wonderful World.
Oh, okay.
And so I like this game so much. It's a simple drafting game. It basically makes 7 Wonder obsolete in my eyes. Mind you, there's like 60 other games that did that too.
Right. So, yeah, we were just discussing this right before.
Yeah.
You finally played 7 Wonders Architects. And it's like, 7 Wonder, it's like the sliced bread joke. Like, I used to have a t-shirt that said sliced bread surpassed by nearly everything since 1922. Yeah. Right? Because everyone says best thing since sliced bread. Well, all of these games are the best things since 7 Wonders.
Yeah, especially when it comes to drafting. Yeah. I thought this was a great game. I didn't do too well because I was like, I focused on this one thing that just didn't work with my player powers. Yeah. And so now that I know it, I am going to play it better. But I just had fun. Be like, I did the thing that I held the card. There was only 1 copy of this card in the entire deck, and I built it. It didn't do me any good.
But you had it, though.
I had it.
No one else had it.
And so, because I played the Aztec Empires, I'm more about like war and exploring ruins and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Whereas I was focused more on gold and other stuff. So, but it was a great game. I had a good time playing it. I liked it so much, I went out and bought 2 expansions that I could find. I wish they would bring it back with Kickstarter. I would get the big box stuff because I really loved our friend's copy of it. Just because how it comes with like the little bowls for everything. Yep. Though I did see on Board Game Geek, they have like the generals and the financiers. They have the they're like the wingspan, the resin. Yeah. They look really nice. So yeah, Geek-a-Bits. I'm gonna end up buying those. But yeah, so this was It's a Wonderful World, great drafting game, plays quite simple. It's funny because you were hesitant when he was like, "Oh, we could knock this out in 30 minutes," and we knocked it out in 30 minutes.
Yeah, I am hesitant because, well, playing it previously with new players, it does tend to take a little bit longer because there is a lot that you could like kind of get heady with, but no, we did.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I came into it not blind. I had already watched how to play, how it worked, and so I'm like, okay, I got an understanding already what it is. So once we started playing it, it's just like, okay, I'm going to take this, move this, going to take this, going to move this, and keep going. And like, okay, I'm going to build this.
Yeah, there was times where you drafted faster than me, and I had played it before.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to take this because I'm going to use this to the trash. This way I can get the component. I want to build this because it'll help start building me up on other stuff. So yeah, it was the fact that I already came into this knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so for me, this one was a great game. It's a Wonderful World. And this would just missed out on our top 8 debate. I think it was like, barely. I think it was like number 10 or 11 or something like that.
Cool deal. All right. Well, then that means that we are going to get into this debate. Before we do so, let's talk about how we run the debate and what all of these Coin of Doom, Cup of Doom category things that we've been talking about and why we try to take our bias out of this debate. The first thing that we do is we have a series of criteria, 5 specifically, each with 3 sub-criteria, because we have way too much time on our hands.
And we argue way too much.
That's right. And so this was simply just... originally, we used to just debate these 5 points, and then we got lost in translation a few times because of what we intended for them. So first one, ease of play. Ease of play, obviously, is just how simple the game is. The first sub-criteria is simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism. If it's a brand new mechanism, it might not be as simple as like rolling dice 3 times.
Oh, case in point, we have Dune Imperium on here. This is a blending of two
fairly common mechanisms. Yeah. And then likelihood to get to the table, i.e. via mechanism or theme. Either one, whatever is more likely to hit the table. And then finally, is the game prone to analysis paralysis?
This is a negative.
Yeah, this is a negative for it. So what we mean by that is, are you going to sit there and just like stare at your hands and freeze up while you're considering all your options? No, part of that's the player, but part of that is the game as well.
Yeah.
So that takes away from the ease of play when you get like so... What was the game that we played the other day where I played and I was like, that was really fun. My head hurts.
Ah, yeah.
And there was one game that we walked away from and I was like, I like that a lot, but I do not want to play that again for another month.
Oh, yeah. That was a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
It was a buddy of ours game. Let me checking.
Because now I'm really curious. But that's an example of being prone to analysis paralysis. I don't think I froze up that much, but there were times when I was like, like my head. There's too many options, too many bones.
Oh, man. I'll
look at my data later. But yeah.
Yeah. Factory Funner.
Factory Funner. That's the one. That is prone to analysis paralysis. Hands down. Yeah. It was fun.
It was a great game.
I hurt when we were done.
All right, so the next criteria we have is replay value. This means the length of time and the scaling of the game. Does it play as well as at 2 players as it does on 4 players? Case in point, we were just talking about Seven Wonders. We will not touch the original Seven Wonders at 2 players to the point where nobody would touch it, and they took it out completely of the new copies and made a 2-player version of it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, length of time and scaling well. Does it add way too much time the more player time?
Is it the kind of game where it's like 1 hour long per player?
Yeah. Minimum number of plays of full experience. What we mean here is like as a campaign game, that's telling you have to play 20, 30 different games to get the full experience. Or there's a multitude of cards, so they're completely different. So case in point, It's a Wonderful World. There's only so many cards that have so many copies. So how long will it take you to go through all of it?
Yeah.
And expandability. This means already existing expansions, up to 1 possible future expansion, or expansions that are confirmed by the designer or publisher. Wingspan is our big one on this. There's going to be an expansion for every continent. Right now, they only have 2, but we know there's going to be 4 others.
Yeah, exactly. The next category is meaningful choice, and this is my personal favorite. There's a few ways to break down meaningful choice. Does the game by playing the game, do you have impact on other players' strategies, or are you just playing multiplayer solitaire? That's one of the big ones. Another one, can you affect your long-term strategy, or are you playing tactically throughout the game itself? And then finally, how likely, and this is also a negative, how likely do arbitrary choices impact your gameplay? So arbitrary choices could be either good or bad. Like, for example, if you have a hand of cards, let's say a bunch of different abilities, and you can only play one of them, if they all are awful, that's an arbitrary choice. You're like,
but
well,
if
they
they're
all
all
suck.
great.
But if they're all great, that's also arbitrary because none of them benefit you any more than others because they're all just equally as good. You want to have that tension. You want to have that feedback in your game.
Yeah.
So that is the meaningful choice. Does every choice or every choice that I make along the way matter?
And how do they matter? Next on our list here is game immersion. This is actually my personal favorite, but this is also the most subjective category we have on here. It does the game fit the category best, or theme match the mechanism? For this one, we're going to go more along the theme matching the mechanism.
Right.
Because do you feel like you're playing completely different than the other players? Or is your player power for this game better than the other game? Next up is player interaction. This includes the table talk or your role playing. You're really getting into what you're doing. You're feeling your character. And so that's very important. And as well as, and this is the most subjective on it, is the memorable moments. What are the things that are going to make you stand up and shout and have a whole room look at you?
Yeah, whether good or bad.
Yep.
And then our last of the 5 criteria is art and production. The art, it is subjective, but there are some games that are very clearly better art. I mean, Fantasy Flight really knocks it out of the park more often than not.
Anything with Vincent Dutray.
That's right. And so there's and lately Ian O'Toole and like there's Chris Quillian. Yeah, there's a lot of really good artists that we've discussed before. But I mean, if it's that versus comic book, like you could tell the person's kind of amateurish.
Or screen captures.
Or screen captures. Yeah, we're gonna pick that apart. Then we have pieces and components. A lot of times people argue for minis and stuff. Well, do the minis impede? Like, for example, we recently played Return to Dark Tower. Everything about that game was really fantastic, except that tower was honestly obtrusive.
It really was.
Right?
It's a great tower.
Small knock. It's small knock.
Small knock because actually it was intrusive. But it was also, it really gave that atmosphere when it lit up or made noise and you hear things rolling. And
but that is something that we'll bring up, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I had to physically stand up to look at your side of the board. That's ridiculous. But, it is what it is. Yeah. And then finally, graphic design. This one's a little less subjective, specifically because Daniel and I are both colorblind. We are definitely going to hold you accountable for that.
Exactly.
If it's not colorblind friendly, then that's a huge knock to you. But really, what we're talking about with graphic design is your cards covered in like icon heavy, or are they paragraphs? You want to have a good balance. You want to have the graphic design of the game enhance your player experience.
And you want it to be as language independent as possible. I know there's going to be some time where you have to talk, but I want to be able to say, okay, this star means this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't want it to have all these variabilities. I'm looking at You've Race for the Galaxy, who is not colorblind friendly, which was on this list of variable player power.
Yep.
And then finally,
and when it all said and done, and if we can't come up with a consensus winner, that's where it's very important that you go join the Board Game Revolution group and vote on the poll that we post on there, because your vote is our tiebreaker.
Yeah. All right. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be flipping the coin of doom. That'll tell us who debates first. And we'll pull one random from the Cup of Doom, and that will decide what they are arguing for. Today we have 8 games with variable player power. Let's list off the games real quick.
Yep.
Our number 1 seed is Terraforming Mars.
And it's going up against our 8 seed, 5 Tribes.
Our number 2 seed, Scythe.
Going up against our 7 seed, Mechs vs. Minions.
Our number 3 seed, Dune Imperium.
Going up against our number 6 seed, Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition.
And our number 4 seed, Marvel Champions.
Going up against our number 5 seed, Agricola. Remember, it's been a bit since we've recorded.
Agricola?
Yeah, I did.
Going up against
Marvel Champions. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so anyway.
5 Tribes.
Yeah, I know.
So my biggest thing is looking through this. I know we're getting ready to do the debate. The 2 and 7 is going to be very tough.
Yes.
Especially when we're going into the art production.
Right.
They're both.
Well, I know which one has my vote. But,
yeah, I know which one has your vote too, and I know which one has my vote in the art and production side of it.
Yeah.
Everything else, I love both of those games. And our number 3 and number 6 seed is a little another toughie because, again, those are really good games too.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So, let's start off with number 1 seed Terraforming Mars versus number 8 seed Five Tribes. Daniel, you'll be starting us off today.
Oh, I get Five Tribes.
Ooh, fantastic.
So, let's just get the elephant out of the room here. Five Tribes, when it comes to variable player power, is not winning that category at all.
In fact, so much to the point that I say we just straight up give game immersion to Terraforming Mars.
I
which
agree.
I don't say as a thematic game.
Yeah.
But compared to Five Tribes...
Yeah, and the big thing is, we talked about it at the top of this, that when we originally were talking about this, Five Tribes is the gen powers. If you get the gen, it really changes you. Other than that, you're just doing the bound column mechanism.
Right.
No difference of it. Now, I'm going through our criteria, and both of them are not easy to learn.
No. But between the two, Five Tribes is easier to learn.
Yes, because of the Moncala mechanism.
Yeah, Moncala's been around for at least thousands of years. So, I mean, that's tried and true. But surprisingly enough, I found very few people... I was taught how to play Moncala in high school by one friend, and I had never met anybody else who knew how to play it.
Well, it's because there's different variations of it, too.
Sure, but any of the variations. Like, we've seen the Moncala boards at, like, thrift stores and stores and stuff, but I've never seen anybody know how to play it other than my one friend.
Well, I think a big part of it, too, is where we're located.
True.
We have a large Hispanic community, Mexican community around here. Growing up, my parents didn't really play that. They played the bones. Yeah. Dominoes. That was their, like, a Mexican train was the thing my dad played all the time.
Right. That's fair. It is a cultural thing.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing.
Moncala, I think it came from Africa, if I'm not
something
mistaken.
Like that, yeah. So I think that's a big part of it is because talking with our friends a while ago, Tabletop Hop, they played a version of a trick taking game I've never heard of called Euchre.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and so, but we down here never really played that. We played the one that you really like is Pepper. We played
Pepper, which nobody knows how to play.
Yeah. Also, me and my family used to play Rummy all the time, or Rook was another one they played a lot. Mm-hmm. So it's a cultural thing. Yeah. So, but yeah, Moncala mechanism is real simple.
Right.
When it comes to the likelihood to get to the table on the ease of play as well, I think that is Five Tribes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Days of Wonder, beautiful art.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, Terraforming Mars is not a pretty game, but it's a good game.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and it's an exciting thing.
Yeah,
it is.
It is. Your corporation's terraforming Mars, and it's cool how you're doing it. I love that thing. The one thing I think Terraforming Mars wins is replay value. Both of them are long games, but the fact of the minimum number of plays of the full experience, there's a ton of cards in Terraforming Mars, and none of them are the same.
I agree with everything you say. I don't think it scales as well. I mean, the Five Tribes I do feel like can be done a lot quicker. I wouldn't call it a long game. I would call it medium length, but I don't disagree with you. I do agree replay value definitely would go to
and also Mars. Because Terraforming Mars expandability. Right. It has 5-6 expansions, something like that, plus the big box. So there is a lot going on there. Right. The one thing that really gets to me is I'm going to say Five Tribes wins art and production hands down.
Yes,
hands down, because even with the big box of the 3D printed pieces it's still ugly as sin. It's not a pretty game,
right?
But the one that gets to me, so we basically have a 2-2 tie. It comes down to meaningful choice.
Yes, which they're both strategic game. I feel like the card play in Terraforming Mars is a little more random. Honestly, I do think Terraforming Mars should move on, and so I know I'm going to argue for it, but because Terraforming Mars, yes, if we break it down piece by piece, what we're arguing right now is variable player power, and hands down, it has that more than anybody else. Even if you take an account for the gens. Like, every card you play, there's a lot of very unique cards in the game itself. Mm-hmm. So, you start off slightly different with your corporations. You end very
differently, yeah.
And that's what I think is the basis of what we're arguing today. And that's why I think regardless of the breakdown, I do think Terraforming Mars should move on.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Just because the big thing is the way we're talking about it, like you were saying, you do... unless you're playing the basic game of Terraforming Mars, it plays differently because you have a different corporation.
Right.
You have different abilities. One corporation's really good about steel and being able to get... Hey, if you get 1 steel, you get 2, actually, instead, or something like that.
Now, don't get me wrong. I do definitely think that Five Tribes is a more strategic game. Once everything is laid out, it's laid out. The only thing that changes is those gens. Once one is bought, then a new one comes out. That's really the only difference between it. But, I mean, it's almost like a chess game at that point.
So you're agreeing Terraforming Mars moves on?
I do agree. Yep.
Okay.
So Terraforming Mars moves on.
By the skin of its teeth.
Barely. Now, don't think I'm taking it easy on you, Terraforming Mars, because starting off as a corporation, that's a small variable. All right? You just wait. Wait. Because we're going to talk about that. No, I'm going to throw it under the bus later. Because...
You don't need to throw it under the bus. It could just pull out the 3D, the
big
beats
box 5 tribes. Because obviously.
Yeah.
Because 5 tribes doesn't have variable player power as far as anyone's concerned. But Terraforming Mars, you hold your horses. Just wait.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. Because you don't have to throw it under the bus because of the playing variable player powers.
Right.
You could just throw it under the bus because it's ugly as sin.
That's true. That's true. That's like kicking a dead horse, right?
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so the next one here is Scythe versus Mechs versus Minions.
And I'll be starting us off on this debate.
Oh, I hope to God you get Scythe.
Oh, I can argue either one. Yep. Yeah, that's fine. Why are you laughing? You know I like Scythe.
Yeah,
I actually like Scythe quite a bit.
You do like Scythe. I just laugh because you finally got your Grail game and you can't argue it.
You're right. You're not wrong on that. No, what makes this so cool? So, Scythe, yeah, it's, first off, super variable. That's the theme of what we're talking about today. Variable player powers. Every one of the countries or whatever character abilities that you do, the boards are completely different on how they work. Mm-hmm. And you are working towards the same goal. You're basically trying to get a certain number of points by utilizing your abilities. One of my honorable mentions was going to be Tapestry, because that unseated Scythe for me as far as Stonemaier games. And I feel it's the same idea, because I really like how Scythe took, an essence of like this mega epic war game, condensed it down in a really refined way, and made it so that you are able to use your player abilities to your benefit. Even if you're not very good at the game, you don't feel like you're taken out of the game because of how you've played your character. You are succeeding in whatever that character is trying to do. And that's what's the most important part. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if my character was just trying to, build up structures like in its home area, I'm making this up honestly, but
yeah, I'm listening.
But you get the idea. Is that even if I lose the game, I still felt like I am completing the objective of what I am aiming for.
Yeah.
And so that's a really big thing. If we had to break it down, because I feel like we'll break it down a little bit, a couple of quick points I want to make out. Art and production, obviously the art goes to Scythe. I mean, because there's no doubt about that. The art is phenomenal.
Pieces and components
is Mechs vs. Minions, yes. So both of the games have really decent graphic design. Yeah. So honestly, I think that's a push. Should be a push, right? Yeah. But they're both very strategic games. There is a little more random in Mechs vs. Minions, and here's the thing.
Barely.
They both take on an intimidating factor. They're easily two of the bigger games that we have in this debate today.
Oh, yeah.
However, with the repertoire of Riot Games making Mechs vs. Minions, you have a lot of League of Legends and the video game community that know that.
Yeah.
Willing to go into tabletop because of that. And that's another thing that we don't often talk about in our debates.
No.
Is that, what is the community impact of these games?
Yeah.
Scythe could never do that. Scythe didn't come from a background that
Oh, no, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Stonemaier has done it, but not with Scythe.
So, likelihood to get to the table on that level of that's like royalty, right? Yeah. That's for example,
and they're still producing it too. Yeah,
so the Elder Scrolls game, when that comes out, that's Skyrim, the board game, that alone is going to pull in a lot of massive gamers that have never been in tabletop before.
The thing is with Mechs vs. Minion, and I agree with you on that. I don't agree with you when it comes to Skyrim. it'll have people look at it, but because of that price point, people might not play it. Whereas League of Legends were selling Mech vs. Minion at a loss. It was like, what, $90?
No, they weren't selling it at a loss, but they weren't selling it as, like, so the difference is when you sell stuff in a retail, right? Like, if I'm a publisher, I'm selling something at a quarter of what the retail is. So if I have a $20 game, I'm selling it for $5 to go into distribution.
Yeah.
That's because that difference has to be made up by the distributors selling it. And then you have to sell it at half of MSRP to get it in stores because they have to jump it up the other 10 and take a chance on your games. Riot never had to do any of that.
Well, they didn't.
They sold it directly.
Only. Yeah.
So when you bought Mech vs. Minions, you got it from Riot.
Yep.
So they were able to take a game that would normally be a $200 game on the shelf and sell it for less than $100.
Yeah, it was 90.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny because our friend Board Game Geek was just talking about it on one of his TikToks. And he was mentioning the fact that because you have to get it from Riot, Gamehead Geek, that you can make it so much easier to do it because you're buying it directly from them.
Yep, and they have the customer base to pull it off, too.
Yeah.
Most companies can't do that.
And I don't disagree with you. It was like when you were talking about Skyrim, that price point is what's going to scare people off. This one you can just buy directly for $90.
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. That it for Scythe, or...
that was it for Scythe for now.
Okay. Yeah. So these are either one are like super easy to play, but I think Mechs vs. Minions is just slightly easier.
It is. The cooperative nature.
Yeah, the cooperative nature of it. The simple coding of it. So it's like, okay, this is what my character is going to do. And you can understand it based on the cards. So ease of play, simplicity, I think goes to Mechs vs. Minions.
Gotcha.
Replay value.
Now, this is interesting. Because it's a campaign game.
Well, the thing is, length of time and scaling well, I think, goes to Mechs vs. Minions.
Yeah?
Mechs vs. Minions plays a lot. I can play a 4-player game of Mechs vs.
Mechs caps at 4.
Yeah, I can play a 4-player game of Mechs vs. Minions quicker than I can play a 4-player game of Scythe. Though Scythe can hold up to 6 players.
Right.
I don't recommend it. We played a 6-player version of that.
No, you really shouldn't. Yeah,
it was long.
Yeah.
But minimum never plays for the full experience. Now, I agree with you. It's a campaign game for Mechs vs. Minion, but it's like 10 chapters.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Give or take. Yeah.
That's fine. Scythe has the Rise of Fenris expansion that makes it a campaign game as well.
Yes. You're not wrong. But you have to get an expansion to do it.
Yeah, and then...
which is a weird little caveat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just the base game alone, because you have the encounter cards that you have a lot to go through. The war cards that do differently. But I will give replay value 2 out of 3 to Mechs vs. Minions.
Okay.
Meaningful choice.
That would definitely be Scythe.
Scythe.
Yeah. Just because, although I love. We're going to get into this more in game immersion, but one of the great thematic parts of Mechs vs. Minions is when you get a glitch and it goes into your programming code and you just have to deal with like this broken code that just sucks for everybody. So like you'll be playing, you're like, hey Danny, come on over here, you need to help us out, and I'm just like spinning in circles because of this broken thing, right? It's awesome. So
no, I don't own Catan.
Yeah, and nor is it on this list because it doesn't have variable player powers as far as the beginning goes.
Yeah,
base game.
So I agree with you that is actually funny when it comes to memorable moments. In fact, I honestly think Mechs vs. Minions going to move on, as much as it pains me because I'm a Stonemaier fanboy.
Right.
The game immersion, Scythe and Mechs vs. Minion fit this category really well. Each character plays differently in Mechs, and each player does something different in Scythe, so I think it's a push there. Right. But the player interaction and the memorable moments goes to Mechs vs. Minions because it's just the shenanigans, as you mentioned it, where like I would help you guys take care of this bomb, but I have to spin in circles.
I'm falling off of a cliff here for some reason. I'm not sure why.
So yeah,
it's so fun.
I don't disagree with you. So Mechs vs. Minion moves on.
Fantastic. All right. Our next one will be our number 3 seed, Dune Imperium versus our number 6 seed, Mansions of Madness, which, oh boy, we've debated before, haven't we?
Oh, a lot.
Yep, and you'll be starting us off today, Daniel.
All right, let's go into the Cup of Doom. And thank you for your comment, GM Dandy Drew. And I get Mansions of Madness.
Of course. Yeah, but I have to argue Dune Imperium.
Well,
which...
no, I would honestly prefer to argue Dune Imperium just because it's something new.
I'm willing to offer a gentleman's trade. No, let's stick with it.
Okay, so Mansions of Madness is... There's a reason why we've debated it so much. Why it's so highly voted. It is a good game. And there is variable player powers.
Yeah.
Your character that you're playing is completely different than another character that you're playing. Someone else is playing. Mm-hmm. So you have your own special ability that nobody else can do.
Yep.
Unless you have like the 8th version of that character.
It meets the criteria.
It does. Outside of that, it has a lot of immersion. It has great components. So it's going to be tough for Dune Imperium, especially to go up against this game, because there's a reason why it's a juggernaut when it comes to our top 8 debates. In fact, if I remember correctly, it went up against Pandemic Legacy Season 2, and it could have been...
it almost
ascended, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what I can add that I haven't already said about this game.
Yeah, listen to almost any other previous top 8
podcasts, yeah.
49 of them to choose from, and probably half of them have Mansions of Madness in it.
So I'm not going to belay the fact. It's a good game. We'll go through the criteria when you get your say about Dune Imperium.
Okay. So Dune Imperium, yeah, I mean, you're the one who introduced me to this game. Mm-hmm. I do not know anything about the Dune universe. Let me just make that clear right here. But I did enjoy it. I do like the combination of deck building and worker placement. There are a couple parts about the game, like the different resources that I'm sure, had I known the theme or the source material better,
it would have fit better.
Yeah, like salt spice. Or spice and other things. It was a spice. Salt is a spice. It counts.
No, because salt isn't... Well, you could have pink salt.
Well, there you go. So, what I'm saying, though, is that, a lot of that was unfortunately lost on me. But I don't feel like I was too taken out of the game.
Yeah.
I felt like I was able to function. Here's my argument, though. When I played Dune Imperium, I didn't like it any more or less than Lost Ruins of Arnak, which we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. But both of which I was kind of, like, mediocre on.
Yeah.
And that's including Doom Imperium's variable player powers. Yeah, it's deck building. That's really where the variability mostly comes in.
Yeah, because you'll have... Well, no, your variability comes in from when you get your Signet Ring out of your deck. Because whenever that's pulled, you get to use your power, which if you're one person, that does something different than the other person. That's the main variable power.
That is true, yeah. And that part I liked about it. I thought it was really cool. There's a lot to consider in the game. As far as whether it's going to pass on, I don't think it will. I do think Mansions of Madness, unfortunately, would move on because I can already see some glaring things. Art and production, the art's fine on it. It's very pretty. The production's garbage, in my opinion. I mean, the tokens, they're fine. They're tokens,
so I do
but they're
agree
not
with
going to
you.
compare with
Compared to Mansions Minis.
Right.
Other than our one slight gripe with Mansion Minis.
Sure.
The stupid...
Yeah, the token
the
itself.
little peg that they got to go onto.
The app is developed better. Everything else.
Well, there's not an app for Dune Imperium, so...
Right, well, that's true. So definitely it's better, right? At least we don't know that yet. I'll have to check that later. No, but really, the app is well produced. It could either make or break the game. I feel like you're more immersed in that, hands down. Meaningful choice, to an extent. I mean, I feel there's more strategy in Dune Imperium, but that's about the last thing I could say.
Yeah,
it matches. I think this is a 4-1, hands down. Meaningful choice goes to Dune Imperium. Everything else goes to Mansions.
Yeah, it's much easier to play. The replay value is up there for now. I know they've just released one expansion, and then they added in a bid box so you can have the minis instead of the player tokens.
That's not even an expansion. We don't count big boxes.
I know, but we have 2 games that have big boxes on here. Actually, 3. Agricola aren't they?
Yes,
really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, which is dumb. That's not an expansion. I mean, unless you include some expansion material, but like even Space Base, I argue against the expansion part of the big box because it adds up to 7 players, and that's about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I digress. I think Mansions moves on.
I don't disagree with you.
All right. Our next one, last one of the semifinals, is Marvel Champions versus Agricola. All right. Daniel, I'll be starting us off on this one. And knowing my luck,
you'll get the one that you don't like.
Well,
yeah, you don't hate it. Hey, look what you get.
Okay. So, I'm going to just say it flat out. Agricola has no right being on this list. Nope. As much as I like this game, I like Agricola much better than Marvel Champions. I'm not a fan of Marvel Champions. I don't think Agricola has any right being on this game.
Yeah, because I can't even think... I don't know why it's on this list, but I think we were discussing it's the buildings.
There are certain buildings you can buy that would be explicit to you.
Mm-hmm. That's it. I can think of.
That's variable player power.
Unless there was an expansions that adds something different that I don't know about.
This is one of the few that I'm just going to flat out say I think Marvel Champions should move on, because I think that Agricola, while technically is part of the list, should be voided from this.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm going through the list here. I think Champions is a bit easier to play, because I remember the first time we got Agricola and we were like...
I don't know. Champions there's a lot of extra upkeep and there's a big learning curve. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier, but I wouldn't say Agricola is harder.
Replay value?
I mean, obviously Champions.
Yeah, big time. Agricola does have a lot of meaningful choice, so I'll give it that. But the game immersion, art production, I'm going to go with Marvel Champions.
Art and production, definitely Agricola, yeah. I mean, discs is people? Come on. Yeah. So let's move Marvel Champions on. That was an easy one.
Yeah. Because both of us were looking at it like, okay, sure.
Yep. I mean, just a gentleman's veto right there. And I really do love Agricola. I could make an argument for Agricola. I really could, but I mean, that's a pretty sound argument.
I will agree with you that Agricola is a very good game.
Yeah.
But not for this criteria.
Right, exactly. So let's move on to the semifinals.
Terraforming Mars versus Mechs versus Minions.
Ooh, I already know this will be a fun one. And you'll be starting us off. Please get Terraforming Mars.
I get 5 tribes.
5 tribes. Something done messed up.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. You saw it live.
So this would technically be Terraforming Mars because Mechs vs. Minions in here. So I got Terraforming Mars
because Terraforming Mars and 5 tribes, almost the same game.
Honestly, right? I'd be more than happy to say Mech vs. Minion moves on because again, Terraforming Mars, great game, meaningful choice. I will give to Terraforming Mars.
Yes,
much more than that, but the game immersion, art and production, the likelihood of getting to the table. And I'll give replay value would be...
It would still be Mechs vs. Minions. Because of the campaign mode. I mean, like...
You get minimum number of plays for the full experience.
Yeah, there's no expansion, but it scales better than...
Yeah, so replay value would be Mechs vs. Minions. Just because it gets 2 of the 3 criteria. The expansions, however, Terraforming Mars gets...
Yeah, it gets the expansions, but that's about it.
Right,
especially if you count the big box, which is still smaller than Mechs vs. Minions base box. Let me remind you. All right, so that was an easy one.
It's about as thick, but not as long.
And now the next one. This is one where we're actually going to have to break down, I feel. But this is Marvel Champions versus Mansions of Madness.
Fantasy Flight versus Fantasy Flight.
That's right, and you'll be starting us. And now you'll be arguing Carcassonne.
I get Mansions of Madness again.
All right. I mean, you do like it quite a bit.
I do like Mansions of Madness. I don't own it.
What are you doing here? For those of you who just saw this live, he just pulled out like 4 Post-it notes. What? No, you're drunk. Go home.
I am home.
Sir. Okay. Well, all right, let's continue.
So, no, I didn't pull Mechs vs. Minion out of the cup when I put the other 2 in. That's what it was. So I have to argue Mansions of Madness. I've talked about this ad nauseum over the last 49 episodes, probably half of them. I think it does get art and production, hands down, because, one, it's got the minis, it's got the pieces and components. I think you can get upgrade stuff for Marvel Champions, but Marvel Champions is a card game, so it's not really that important. You have a little bit of tokens. The art is great in Mansions of Madness, as well as Marvel's Champions. I like the fact that Marvel Champions, they didn't do like screen captures. They kind of made it comic booky, but they made it their own rather than drawing from comic books,
which is awesome of them.
Yeah, and then but Mansions of Madness, man, I don't I don't know about you, but it creeps me out sometimes with some of those creatures. It's dark.
They're pretty terrifying,
and it's really good how they did this. Other than that, I think Mansions of Madness is going to have a hard time. I do say there's a bit more meaningful choice in Mansions of Madness because you're driving it, whereas in Marvel's Champions, you're drawing cards, and so you're hoping you get something good.
Yep.
Whereas you have to make smart choices. And so if I'm a character who doesn't really do good investigation, maybe I shouldn't go do that puzzle over there. Maybe someone else should. So it does a lot of that. But when it comes down to the other ones, we're going to really have to break it down. Replay value, hands down, is Marvel Champions.
Yes. Yeah. Well...
Yeah, no, it's because it's not when it comes to just the minimum number of plays.
Their expansions are beyond.
Yeah, well, there's just also they add more in those expansions because you have like these right here. I have one on hand. It's a scenario pack where you're just adding more bad guys and stuff like that.
You knew you were arguing that today, sir.
No.
Before the podcast, by the way, he actually took those off of his shelf and sat them down there. It's like, we'll be needing these.
It's sitting on my shelf. I was showing the only thing I took off my shelf is the X-Men United. I was showing him the Sentinel mini.
He brought that down. I saw it right there. He explicitly said.
First off, I wouldn't bring it down off the shelf because Marvel's Champions is down there on the bottom of the shelf. I'd have to lift it. I would have to raise it up.
It's a phrase. It means you took it from said shelf where it was clearly before our podcast.
No, I did not. They've been sitting on my desk since March.
For this day alone.
We've argued Marvel Champions before then, too.
And every time he brings...
But you get the different scenario packs, so they're adding more villains and more stuff going on there. So I think the minimum number of plays, it's because it's a living card game, it's just going to be infinite until they decide, we're done with it.
Right, exactly.
And then also the expandability. That's where it gets it, too. It's just, it's... I don't even know how many packs there are.
There's enough source material, for sure.
Yeah, there's so much out there. Honestly, this is tough for me. I think Mansions of Madness is going to move on, but we'll see.
All right. So now I have to argue for Marvel Champions, which, by the way, you did a great job for me. No, Marvel Champions.
But I'm just saying, those are the only two I think could win. It wins.
Right. No, I don't disagree. Because Marvel Champions, the reason I disliked it, well, first off, I'm not a superhero fan, so that's one thing. But I can normally put that aside if it's still a fun experience. Like, for example, Marvel United. I quite liked that game. I thought it was really fun when I played it. May not be as thematic, but when I played Marvel Champions, I loathed it. It was not fun. It had no fun. It wasn't enjoyable to play. It was,
which is weird because I had a great time playing it.
Yeah, but you also like the source material a lot more than me. And I'm not saying that's 100% of it, but that definitely brings you in. So I think in a way that actually boasts the game immersion because you really do like you feel like you're playing this source material that I have no relation with whatsoever. Yeah. And I think that shows beyond most is that how different of an experience you and I had knowing how different of a background you and I have with superheroes, right? You're definitely big on superheroes. I don't care at all. And that shines through the game immersion because you and our other friend who showed us, like everyone who's a comic book fan is like, oh yeah, you would totally do this. He was like, this is perfect. Let's do this. Oh, hey, you could probably do this, right? And I'm sitting there like, I'm like, he can see through walls and stuff, right? Like it's Wolverine. I think like can he fly? Like I don't know. I don't remember. Like he has like spider webs that come out of his hand. It's like, sir, you're playing Red Skull. Like what do you like? You don't play Red Skull, but you know what I mean. Like it's like I didn't care, and so that brought me out of it. Now, as far as meaningful choice goes, that goes to Marvel Champions because Mansions has dice.
Yeah, forgot the dice.
It's all dice driven.
Yeah.
With the exceptions of the puzzles and some variability. Now, granted, it's dice mitigated, but that does not make up for the fact that your deck is designed to be like your superhero. your antagonist is designed to act like the character would. And that, yes, it's random as to what cards come up, but not really, right? I mean, like, if I'm pulling a bunch of sidekicks because my character has sidekicks, I don't know if they do or not, but you know what I mean? Like, or like whatever kind of, like, oh, this dude's really good at punching.
I know what you're talking about.
Like Hulk, he just jumps up and like gets really beefy all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's super thematic.
Yeah.
Enough where I remember that. So game immersion,
and I
feel
the
goes
Hulk.
to that. I feel meaningful choice goes to that. Ease of play, I think, goes to Mansions, personally, because I do think it's a much easier game to play.
Mm-hmm.
Replay value goes to Marvel Champions, and art and production is a wash because they're both Fantasy Flight and they're all really high quality. So, although the tokens are a little small in Marvel Champions, but I think
tokens are pretty small for like the investigating stuff and
yeah,
Mansions of Madness too.
It's true, they're a little chintzy, but I don't know. My vote, I would say. Marvel Champions moves on.
I'm not going to argue with you because it's just Marvel Champions. I'm tired of talking about Mansions of Madness.
No, I just think it fits. It fits better. Talk about taking bias out of it, right? I think I'm doing a pretty darn good job today.
Oh, and it's not just taking the bias out of it, but the fact that we got rid of Mansions of Madness, it makes me happy. I'm gonna be totally biased about that.
Fairly,
yeah,
and fairly. We can laugh at it, but we fairly eliminated it. All right, so now our finale.
Before we go into the finale, we have Mechs vs. Minions versus Marvel Champions, but we didn't actually break down the other votes here.
Yeah, let's talk about how many votes they got from our users.
So our first elimination was 5 tribes, and it had nada.
Zero votes.
0 votes.
Sorry.
Yeah, so they agree with us.
I say that like mocking it. Like I love that game.
So the next one eliminated was our number 2 seed, Scythe.
Yep.
It was our fifth at 2 votes.
It's not very good.
Yeah, no, it's more algorithm than us. Yeah. Yep. The next one eliminated was our number 3 seed, Dune Imperium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was up there. This is our 3rd best vote getter. Oh, actually, it was our 2nd best vote getter, tied second at 5. And finally, Agricola was canceled out by Marvel Champions. Agricola had no love.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah, Agricola, 0 votes, just like 5 tribes.
And Terraforming Mars was our next eliminated by Mechs vs. Minions. It was the one that was tied with Dune Imperium at 5. And finally, our number 1 vote getter was our next one eliminated, Mansions of Madness. It had a total of 8 votes.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think they're getting sick of us putting it up there.
Yep. it is what it is. All right. So now our finale, once again, we put away the Coin of Doom, we put away the Cup of Doom, because we do not argue for sides. We already did that multiple times. We simply break down the different criteria. Daniel, there is one that I think immediately sticks out to me.
There's one that sticks out to me.
Is it art and production for you?
Yep.
Okay. I think we both agree
Mechs
vs. Minions has better art and production.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the art is probably a bit better in
There's
Marvel
another one that
Champions,
actually...
But the production sets it above and beyond.
There's another one that actually jumps out to me.
Which is?
Replay value.
Replay value, really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you're arguing for Marvel Champions.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't totally disagree with you on that. I do disagree with you just slightly.
My thing is with the length of time and scaling well, that's Mechs vs. Minions. Yeah. But the minimum number of plays for the full experience and the expandability alone gets it.
The expandability, yeah. That definitely does. And then minimum number of plays, I'd say would be a wash in the base set. Just because you only have a few characters and you have a few antagonists, a few villains, and like some scenarios. I would say it's probably on par with the campaign. Honestly, but still.
With the first big box expansion, that changes things.
Yeah, but we're arguing base.
No, but it's in replay value.
I think realistically replay value with the base game alone is probably about 10 plays, which is the same number of scenarios. I think realistically that's true.
I'm trying to think how much was in the base game. I think it was 5 characters in the base game, 3 villains.
Yeah.
Plus different schemes.
Right. So since you're playing fewer players,
it's over 10. 5 different players, or 5 different characters, 3 different masterminds or villains.
Right. No, I know that would be 15, but you're not playing as a 1-player game. We were playing with other players.
Well, even at 4 players, you're still...
I think it'd be 5 times the number of scenarios, which as there's more than 2 scenarios?
3.
There's 3 scenarios?
So
okay,
12.
so 15. Yes. Math. 5 villains, 3 scenarios.
Okay, yep.
Yep. Superheroes aside.
That's better than Mechs vs. Minion. They only have 10.
Yeah, okay. I don't disagree. Sir, we're arguing the same side. Okay, I agree with that. Okay. So now it comes down to meaningful choice, ease of play, and game immersion. Honestly, that's really tough. None of those really jump out to me. Let's go ease of play. I think that's going to be the easiest to determine.
Simplicity and familiarity of the mechanism.
Okay, programming is pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have with Marvel Champions is I don't think it's easy to play.
It's not.
Because...
I don't disagree with you.
And sure, they're both cooperative, so that's a plus, right?
Yeah.
Like I said before...
I have to say this about Marvel's Champions. I do like the fact that it's a cooperative collectible card game. You don't really see a lot of those.
But it suffers from the same thing that a lot of collectible games do, or living card games, whatever you want to call it, is that there's a lot of terms that are game specific. There's a lot of variabilities that you have to consider. Like, and for example, Magic the Gathering, every set that comes out comes with mostly a new mechanism. You have to learn a new term.
And
Marvel
honestly,
Champions does the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, ooh, this one has taunt. Like, what does that mean? Like, this one has fragrance. It's like, why? Like, what does that have to do with anything? This one has ampersand. It's like parallelogram. You know, I'm just... But that's what I'm saying. That terminology is something you have to do.
Yeah,
you have to learn every time.
I think the big part of it, too, also with you, is the terminology doesn't correlate as well for you. Because, again, you're not into superheroes. So, like...
Yeah. But even then, you have to know what those do. And that's still a learning curve. And then, by all means, analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
You are playing one card on Mechs vs. Minions to your programming wheel and then running the program. You have to play your hand, maybe, kind of, possibly, depending on stuff. No.
And where are you playing it? In front of you? You're going to play it over to that guy?
To this person, you're going to heal them.
Over there?
Some cards
have help out your buddy
abilities.
Over there?
Do you transform between your altar and not? Like, come on.
I got to go to my altar to heal.
You know what? I just completely argued that out. That is not the easiest game. In fact, by far, Mechs vs. Minions is ease of play. It now jumps out to me after hearing this. All right, so now 2 to Mechs vs. Minions, 1 to Marvel Champions. Meaningful choice. Mechs vs. Minions and Marvel Champions are both the only random that they have in it. As far as random goes,
a card draw.
Is the card draw. They both suffer from that, and that's on purpose. Can you make arbitrary choices on either?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly. I mean, what you do matters in both. Yeah. Very much so.
Honestly, I would be okay with calling this a wash.
Well, my thing, impact on long-term strategy.
Honestly, you don't really impact your the long-term strategy in Mechs vs. Minions. The game itself impacts it. You're not making the choice. The game puts a glitch
because
on
of the fact that you build your code throughout multiple turns. That is at least a 5-turn thing that you have to consider. It's like, all right, I can program that I'm going to move forward and turn on this spot, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm going to have to deal with that decision every one of my next turns until I deal with it. That's a really, really important choice.
Well, the same thing could be said about Marvel's Champions when you're saying, should I hold on to these for me to do this over here? Or should I play these out because we really need to take care of this villain over there?
Yeah, but that doesn't impact multiple turns. That's just like, oh, it stays out until it's gone, right? I mean, it's more so. I mean, no, and I think that's part of the charm of the game. I'm not saying it's necessarily headier, but it's just that's something that's not an arbitrary choice. Like, if I have a card that just says punch somebody for 5, it's like, hey guys.
But we're not arguing the arbitrary choice. Oh. We both agree that's a wash on both of those games. We're talking about long-term strategy.
Right, long-term strategy. Marvel Champions, I feel, is more tactical.
So you're saying Marvel Champions has more long-term strategy than Mechs vs. Minions?
I think Mechs vs. Minions has more long-term because everything changes every turn in that. So, like, what I do right now yes, that'll affect my turn now, that'll affect you for the round, but as soon as the villain attacks, as soon as he comes up with whatever scheme he's doing, as soon as he throws some variant, which every person gets another card in front of them, which changes different things, you have to redo your whole turn, or your strategy every single round. Whether you get a person to fight in front of you, whether an event like messes up half of your cards, whether this happens, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you just have to reconsider over and over that I don't feel that you have to do in Mechs vs. Minions.
You do. I just told you the glitch.
Yes, the glitch, but there's ways to mitigate it. It's one.
There's ways
glitch,
to mitigate it in Marvel's Champions.
True. Okay, let's call it a wash.
Well, that's what I was trying to do to begin with.
I still don't agree, but we will call it a wash.
I'm just like, everything you just said impacts Marvel Champions just as well.
But it's so much more random in that, in my opinion. I mean, just the way that the villains do it, it's just, I don't know. I can't get it. So we'll call it a wash. Which leaves us with game immersion?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay. Now, I know I've argued for Marvel Champions before. No, let's talk about it. Because I feel like they could both give memorable moments. Very
much so. The player interaction both require a lot of talking.
You both feel like you're part of it, right? Now, which one matches the mechanism? Is this really going to boil down to which one matches the mechanism the best? Because which one has the most unique player powers? That would probably be Marvel.
Yep.
That would be Marvel. In fact, definitely be Marvel, because your whole deck is your variable player power. Wow. That's close, isn't it?
It's a tie.
It's a tie. So that means it breaks down into fan vote. Even though, if Mechs vs. Minions, if you would have agreed with me, even though it would have won. What's the tie say?
By a vote difference, Marvel Champions is the winner.
All right. Good job, Marvel Champions.
Honestly, I thought Mechs vs. Minions would have won the vote.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why it didn't. I mean, it's cult of the new still.
True.
Not saying Mechs vs. Minions is old, but comparatively, it's at least twice as old.
Yeah.
In 2020.
I'm shocked where that went. I thought Mechs vs. Minions was winning hands down.
Well, you know, it's our game. We can argue it. Let's change it to Mechs vs.
It's already happened.
All right. That's right. We took our bias out of it. And Marvel Champions won fair and square. So, this was an interesting podcast today.
Yeah, no.
I never thought I'd be arguing so favorably about Marvel Champions before. I mean, in all fairness, that's our job, right?
Yeah.
That's what we get paid the big bucks for.
I just found it hilarious that the one game you really disliked on this topic.
Yes, it's my least favorite game, hands down, on this.
Other than the ones that really don't fit this topic.
Right. No, I mean, yeah. Both of the games that don't fit the topic, I like way better than Marvel Champions.
You had to argue it for every single round, and you're the one that pushed it over into the champion.
But, you know, so on our list, yeah, I like Agricola a lot. I like Five Tribes, but I wasn't going to hold that. I like Mechs vs. Minions. That's my favorite on this list by far.
That matches.
That matches, yes. Oh, no, even with. I think I like Mechs vs. Minions more than I do Agricola or Five Tribes.
I'm just trying to think.
But here's the thing. Like, Scythe, I like it. It's fine. Terraforming Mars, it's fine. Dune Imperium, it's fine. I probably lean more towards like it's okay at best. Mansion of Madness, yeah, it's fine. Marvel Champions, really don't like. So this I wasn't as invested in variable player power, apparently.
Yeah.
In this argument, but yeah, it wasn't that it's like, oh well, you definitely hate that one. It's like I dislike it the most out of them, but
yeah,
overall,
it ended up winning.
Yeah.
In fact, I like most of the games on here. Honestly, my least favorite, I would probably have to say, ooh, that's tough. It'd probably be Agricola.
Agricola, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just need to play it some more, I think.
Yeah. I just think it's very hitty, and honestly, I do enjoy it for what it is.
I feel like it'd be a really fun two-player only.
We played it two-player originally. It was Caverna that we played with the full contingent.
That's right. That's a good point. Oh, well. Yeah, it was a bit heavy, though.
Yeah,
it really was.
There's a lot going on with it. I enjoy it for what it is. In fact, I just realized that for Uwe Rosenberg, I like his smaller games more than I like his big games.
I do, too. I do too, actually. I mean, I like them both, but yeah, there's something about the way he does smaller games like Bonanza, Patchwork, all of those.
Yeah, those are really good games.
He always throws something really smart into the mix with it, and that
heck, when he
bigger
did,
games are just big and expensive
when he did
games.
Patchwork Doodle, that was a great game.
It was.
It's like, why do you make these big giant games that make my brain hurt when you do really good small games?
Wait a minute, was Luna Nova on this list? No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. No.
So
Yeah.
I was about to say that does not count as very good. All right. Anyway, that's beside the point. We hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast today. If you ever want to join us live, like GM Dandy Drew, thank you for chiming in. If you ever want to join us on a live episode, you definitely can. Stream us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames, and by all means, please follow us there so you're notified when we broadcast and go live.
You can also find all video re-uploads on YouTube at Everyday Board Games 2020. And if you like what we do, there are 3 things you can do to help us grow on that platform. Subscribe if you're not, like the video, and comment down below and tell us your thoughts on the subject. As well as all audio versions can be found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games Podcast. This includes Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, and Podbean.
If you ever want to get in contact with us directly by either just wanting to say hi, enter in future contests, or just give us ideas for future episodes. Clearly 50 top 8 debates. We're not slowing down. But we could use some help.
Yeah.
Email us directly at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
As well as you can get in contact with us on our official Twitter account at EBG Podcast.
So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I've been your host, Daniel.
And I've been your host, Daniel.
And we want to thank you for listening to Everyday Board Games.
And remember, every day's a good day for board gaming.